Good morning, gathered ministers, government officials, and students.
Bonjour tout le monde. My name is Elliot.
And my name is Roseanne.
And I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gathered today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, but most recently the territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. This territory was subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. This territory is also covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. The meeting place of Toronto is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful for the opportunity to work in the community on this territory.
We're also excited to be here today as we have a chance to have our voices heard on a national scale. Finance Minister Bill Morneau is here and ready to answer your questions about the 2018 federal budget. Please welcome Minister Morneau.
So you want me to start?
Yeah?
Yes. Well, it's a real pleasure to be here. I was really disappointed that I wasn't on stage, so I couldn't high-five Craig. But I wanted to start by thanking Craig and the WE organization for hosting us here today, and obviously thanking Elliot and Razan for taking the responsibility for keeping me on track today and making sure I'm on time with my answers. This center is a really great place for us to have this event today. We get to have people from the local area here that have an opportunity to ask questions, but we also get to engage people from across the country. This is the first of our pre-budget consultations. So today I'm opening up the sessions that allow Canadians to give input into the budget process, the budget for the country. So effectively, you're going to be the first the first words of advice that I'm going to get on what we should be doing in our budget for 2018. Obviously, the other government ministers have come forward with what they think we should do, but your voices are important too. So that's what we're starting here today. Pour moi, c'est un grand plaisir d'être avec vous parce que je sais qu'avec vos idées, avec vos questions, nous pouvons faire un meilleur plan pour notre pays. C'est la seule façon qu'on peut avoir un bon résultat, c'est d'écouter, d'avoir les idées pour exactement ce qu'on doit faire pour améliorer notre économie et ajouter les emplois à travers notre pays. C'est important d'avoir vos idées. So today, really, we're going to be talking a little bit about what's important to you. For the background, maybe I can start by saying, we're a government that's now 2 years in. We've been making changes that have had a really big impact on our economy, but also I think a big impact on what will be your lives, not only today, but in the future as you go out and seek to get jobs. In the last couple of years, we've gone from a situation where we had kind of a low growth environment. When we came into office in 2015, the economy wasn't growing very well. We weren't creating as many new jobs as we wanted, and that means not as many opportunities for Canadians, and in particular, not as many opportunities for young people. So in the last couple of years, we've been able to change that. We've made big positive investments in Canadian families. We introduced what's called the Canada Child Benefit. So for most of your families, for 9 out of 10 families in the country, they have more money to raise their children, and that's really important for those families. It's also put more money into our economy, and what that means is we've seen a faster growth rate in the economy. We've also seen a huge number of new jobs been created. So in the last 2 years, in this country, we've created about 500,000 new jobs, and that's really important. To put that in context, it means that the level of unemployment in the country is the lowest it's been for more than a decade. Another thing that's really important for people in this room to know is the youth unemployment in this country. We're now reaching pretty much the lowest level that we've ever had for the time that we've been recording youth unemployment. So I'm not saying there's not more to do, but it gives us a greater sense of optimism for the future. And as Craig mentioned, we know that many of you have part-time jobs and many of your friends have part-time jobs. We know that pretty well all of you will be looking for full-time jobs at some stage in the not too distant future. And creating more jobs is critically important to you. It's also really important for the economy, because if we have more people that are working, more people that are part of this national endeavor, then we get to a much, much better situation. Dans mon travail, j'ai l'occasion de parler avec les Canadiens à travers notre pays. C'est très important. Et souvent, j'ai des idées des chefs des affaires, des chefs en gouvernement, les gens qui ont des bonnes positions à travers notre pays. Mais aujourd'hui, c'est très important d'avoir les idées des étudiants, des gens qui sont vraiment avec des idées pour l'avenir. Je sais que vous êtes en ce moment déjà les chefs dans votre situation, mais pour l'avenir, c'est certain que les jeunes vont être les chefs dans l'avenir. Donc vos idées sont très importantes. For me, what I can tell you is, as much as I get great ideas from business leaders or from economic think tanks, I get great ideas from the kitchen table too. I have 4 children, and I can tell you that they come up with great ideas. They're not so different in age than you or the people listening. I have 3 children in university and 1 in high school, and I can tell you that when I did something like announce that we were going to have a woman, for the first time, a woman other than the Queen as the sole person on one of our banknotes, on our $10 banknote, the first text I got was from my then 17-year-old daughter telling me how important this was for the country and for showing young women and women that they are absolutely equal and part of our country. I get berated on a regular basis from one of my sons about the need for us to do more on the environment. So I'm looking forward to hearing your views on that. So I'll tell you what the key themes are for us this year in our pre-budget consultation. We're looking to consider how we can continue to have progress for the middle class. We've said that if we have a strong middle class in our country, our economy is better and it's better for everyone. We've said that we need to think about the economy of tomorrow, knowing that rapid changes in technology and automation are really making our economy look different. So it's a theme that we want to talk about. We know that we need to think about lifelong learning. So you're in school today, and the way we've traditionally looked at learning in our country is you go to school and you might go to college or university, and then you go to work and you work for your career. Well, the question is that the right approach for the future? In an environment that's changing rapidly, are we going to have a different approach to lifelong learning? And finally, we want to think about gender equality and how we can make sure that our country provides opportunities for all Canadians. So these are some of the key themes. For those of you who are online today, we hope you'll follow with us online and go to, what is it, the hashtag? Is someone here from my team? Your budget 2018. So please go to that if you'd like to follow us online, because we're looking for ideas from across the country. So again, it's a great pleasure to be here, and I'll stop so that we can have questions from you or comments or advice. Thank you. So over to you. Over to you.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Il peut parfois être difficile d'être pris au sérieux. On est trop jeune pour voter, mais pas trop jeune pour avoir des pensées, des opinions ou de la curiosité. Ce matin, on va pouvoir discuter avec ceux qui prennent les décisions qui affectent nos vies à tous les jours.
So I'll get one question out of the way right now. What is a budget?
Mais Razan, c'est quoi un budget?
So budget is a roadmap to how the government will take in and spend money over the course of a year. This can lead to changes to how much funding schools, organizations, and communities receive. It can affect everything from access to post-secondary education to the cost of a bus ticket. Every single day, everybody in this room is affected by the budget in some way.
Le budget nous affectera pas seulement quand vous aurez une carrière, un compte d'épargne ou une entreprise. Il nous affecte déjà aujourd'hui. On est tous affectés par les changements liés aux dépenses gouvernementales.
So coming from a Palestinian Canadian family, I believe that the budget has influenced my life. So the budget influences how much money Canada can allocate to help families like mine settle into the country. But the way the budget impacts your life doesn't nearly have to be that big. If you came in a car today or you took a bus, the budget would have impacted the cost of the gas in your vehicle, but also the quality of the road that you drove in on.
Si vous êtes déjà allé chez le médecin, le budget aide à assurer que vos soins de santé demeurent gratuits. Et aujourd'hui, on a l'occasion incroyable de faire partie du procès de création du budget. Il ne s'agit pas simplement de comprendre comment fonctionne le budget, mais d'aider à développer le budget.
We're also going to be taking in questions from all across the country via Skype, and this is made possible by the state-of-the-art technology here at the We Global Learning Center. I see an amazing group of passionate and curious changemakers right in front of me, so I want everyone to thrive off of that energy and come up with questions for us. You can ask how the budget will influence and impact youth, and also how it secures our access to higher education.
Vous pouvez aussi poser des questions liées aux bienfaits pour les communautés autochtones, des questions sur la manière dont le budget aidera les vétérans ou même vos parents.
You can also ask how the budget will make life easier for people living in poverty.
Ou s'il aidera les gens qui vivent en ville ou ceux qui vivent au sein de communautés rurales.
This is a chance to take part in something millions of youth around the world simply can't take part in. It's also a chance to engage with our government and a reminder we're also lucky to be Canadians. This is an opportunity to connect with the leaders of today with the leaders of tomorrow, so let's have our voices heard.
On espère qu'aujourd'hui, ça va être comme un cours de politique, mais super intéressant.
On espère.
On espère, ouais.
Before we move on, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Elliot for joining me on stage and for Lee for hosting us in this wonderful space.
Un gros merci aussi au ministre Morneau pour cette opportunité extraordinaire.
And most of all, thank you to everyone in our wonderful audience. We have a very, very fun morning planned for you, and we can't wait to hear all your questions.
Let's start by having a question from our audience. Hi, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Good, thanks.
Let's get us started. What's your question for Minister Morneau?
Hi, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Great to be here.
So, my question is that I understand that there's $400 million allocated into the youth employment strategy. Could you provide us with more information on how this money will make its way into the hands of young Canadians?
Well, thank you. That's a pretty important question, especially given the audience. Obviously, a youth employment strategy is not intended to directly give money to youth. It's more about engaging in what we want to do in order to make a difference for youth today and also for youth tomorrow. So there's multiple things that we're trying to do to make sure that for all of you here, or for all of the young people listening, that they're in a better situation tomorrow in terms of educational opportunities than they are today. So what do we think about when we think about that? We think about the kinds of things that are really important to you. First and foremost, for young people, we think about summer jobs. So we have a Canada Summer Jobs program that what we decided to do was to double the size of that. So what that means is that across the country, there's 65,000 young people that will get the opportunity to get summer jobs in their local regions. For people here in the room or for people that are listening online, it will mean that they can go out to local not-for-profits in their area or small businesses, and those small businesses will be provided with some funding so that they can employ young people in summer jobs. One of the things that we've said is important is that we have the capacity for people to get summer jobs and not just internships. One of the things that we've seen over the last couple of decades is there's been an increase in the number of unpaid internships for young people. And while that might provide a small subset of fairly wealthy people with the opportunity for summer opportunities, for most of you, for most of Canadian young people, they'd like to actually earn some money in the summer job. So that's why the Canada Summer Jobs program is so important. It provides an opportunity for that. We also know, though, that we have to think about how we help people to get into post-secondary education and recognize the high cost of getting into post-secondary education, and both while they're there, but also as they get out into the workforce. So when we came into office, we decided to significantly increase the grants available for low and middle income Canadians to go to post-secondary institutions, to colleges or universities. So we have about 350,000 more students that are getting grants in post-secondary education. And what we also did was we decided to make it easier for them once they got out of college or university. So we changed it so that to the extent that anybody has loans that they get by going through college or university, that they have more time to pay them off. So we said you don't have to pay off those loans until you get into employment that pays you $25,000 or more, recognizing that having a big loan to pay off without any income is potentially debilitating. So these are a few of the measures that we focused on around youth engagement, but we have more to talk about, and I'd like to hear your ideas on what we might do that might have particular impact from your perspective for young people.
All right, that was a really great question. Thank you for your answer.
She said it was a great question. She didn't mention the answer, just saying.
So I would like to throw it to our very first Skype question. With the technology at the We Global Learning Center, we're able to connect with schools from all over the country. So we're now being joined by Myrtle Collegiate. How's it going on over there?
Good morning.
Hi, guys. So they're Skyping us all the way from Manitoba. All right.
Thanks for having us, guys. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so what's your question for the minister?
All right. Well, we are the grade 9 social studies class here at Myrtle Collegiate, and this is Jessica Young with our question for Minister Morneau.
My question for you today is, how will Canada's immigration plan affect the budget? And how will you ensure that the budget represents both new and existing Canadians?
Is it Jessica, I heard? Is that your name? Well, thank you, Jessica, for this question. Maybe I should start with just a little background on the current immigration policy of our country. We are a country that is so incredibly fortunate. And we're fortunate for a lot of reasons, but one reason is that we have a high level of openness to new Canadians, people coming from other countries. We've been extraordinarily successful as a country by being able to bring people from other parts of the world, provide opportunities for them in our country, and that's actually helping all of us to succeed. So we know that around the world there are some places where they're not nearly as successful at welcoming new people to the country, and there's in some places some concern that the population is not going to be as supportive. The good news is that in Canada, really across all party lines, so this isn't a partisan issue of liberals versus conservatives versus NDP. We have a broad consensus in our country that immigration is a good thing, that we can find a way to create opportunities and that we'll all be better off for it. So we're trying to make sure that that's part of everything we do. You saw when we came into office that we said we wanted to have open arms to refugees from Syria, a particularly challenged part of our world. But we also said more broadly, we want to think about how we have people that can come to Canada that are going to provide immediate economic advantage to the country, how we can ensure that families can be reunited with if there's someone here that they can bring their family members to Canada, and that we can support people in really challenging situations from a refugee standpoint. So we've upped the number of Canadians that are coming from abroad. We've upped the number of immigration, number of people that can come to Canada each year. In 2017, to answer your specific question, we had a target of 300,000 immigrants, which was a big increase from 2016, from which we were around 270,000. This year, each year, on November 1st of each year, we announce the target for the next year, and we announced that for 2018, it's going to be 310,000 people. So we've increased it again, and we also announced that we will be increasing it again the following year and the year after that. So identifying that we're going to increase the amount of immigration in a planned way, and the planning is important. Your question was about the budget. In the budget, we have to actually think about the costs to bring people to Canada. If we want to continue to be successful in immigration, we need to do it right. So that means we need to make sure that the people that are coming here are going to be successful here. We need to meet with them in advance and make sure they have the capacity to be successful here, because we want to help people to be successful. When people get here, we need to settle them into our country. We need to provide them with the opportunity, if they need to learn French or English. We need to help them to see job opportunities and school opportunities for the family members. So we've put significant amount of funding into our budget for bringing new people, and a commitment that that funding will continue and go up as we increase the amount of people that come to our country. Because as successful as we've been in immigration, we need to keep being successful, and that means thinking about how we do it right. We want to make sure that the lineups to get in are manageable, that people have access to information, but also that they're settled properly. So it's a really important question. And I will tell you, for young people in particular, it's an important question about your future. Because in our country, we have an important challenge that we are now in a situation where we actually have more people that are over age 65 that are under age 15. So getting new people to our country from other countries is part of the way that we can keep our country healthy, our economy healthy. So for your future, I would say that immigration, successful immigration of new Canadians is critically important. And Jessica, we're on it.
Thank you for meeting and taking the time to meet with us today.
So thank you for all of you from Manitoba. And what's the weather like there today?
Very cold.
Okay.
Minister, we're now going to take a question emailed into our We Schools team ahead of time. This
You
question...
could have given it to me in advance. It would have been...
Yeah, maybe. This question comes from Paul in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. They asked, les prêts étudiants peuvent être un obstacle important pour l'indépendance financière et peuvent aussi affecter l'économie. Avez-vous des idées afin de rendre les prêts plus faciles à payer ou allez-vous fournir plus de bourses pour que les étudiants n'aient pas besoin de prêts?
C'est une bonne question. C'était qui?
Paul from
Paul,
Saskatoon.
c'est une bonne question. C'est plus ou moins ce que j'ai dit en anglais. Pour nous, nous savons que c'est très important pour les étudiants d'avoir la possibilité d'être dans un collège ou une universitaire. Et c'est dur parce que c'est cher. Et chaque famille n'a pas la même façon de payer. C'est pour ça que nous avons ajouté en bourse pour les gens dans une faible ou moyenne revenu, une situation faible ou moyenne revenu. Ça, c'était une politique très importante pour nous. Il y a 2 ans, nous l'avons fait. Et en même temps, nous avons expliqué que ce n'est pas nécessaire à payer les dettes pendant les ans après on finit leur étude jusqu'on a un niveau de revenu de 25 000 $. C'est une chose très importante pour eux d'avoir plus d'une bourse, bien sûr, ça c'est important, et une dette qui est plus possible de gérer avec plus de temps pour le pays. Donc, c'est une façon d'assurer qu'on a la possibilité pour toutes les Canadiennes et toutes les Canadiennes d'avoir une opportunité pour l'éducation postsecondaire. Merci, Paul.
And thank you, Minister, for the answer. All right, so we have a student trustee from the audience with us today. Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, good morning. My name is Shams. I'm the student trustee from Toronto.
Okay, awesome. And what's your question for the minister?
Can you tell us what a student trustee is?
So basically, a student trustee is the student representative for all of the students in a particular school board. So in Ontario, we have a very special process where all 72 school boards have representatives of the student body that make the decisions with the adult trustees that get elected municipally. So across the province, every school board is required legally through the Education Act to have student trustees represent the student body in any school board decision that happens.
That's great. So
Very
now
big
you know you can all
responsibility.
aspire to be a trustee. Do they pay you?
Not really.
Okay.
So in my opinion, and I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone in the room, but I think most people would agree, the budget serves as an investment in the future, not only short term in the next couple of years, but in years to come. And as students, as youth, we serve as kind of the actual investment. We take part in what goes on in the future, and soon enough, we might be in the position that you're in a couple years down the road, governing the nation. And that being said, I know that the budget takes a huge focus in green energies and emerging markets, but are there incentives or grants that are going to be provided for other industries that are exponentially growing, such as cryptocurrencies or AI, virtual reality, gene editing? Because I know we're in an organization that's facilitated or founded on social entrepreneurship, and we have this new wave of entrepreneurs coming from Canada, but what are we doing to support them?
Well, that's a really important question. I mean, they really liked your question, just so you know. I mean, I think, it boils down to what are all of you going to be doing when you get into the workforce? And I expect that most of you want to have exciting jobs in fields that are growing, that are making a difference. So we recognize that as much as we need to support the economy that we have today, we also need to think about tomorrow. So I'm just going to identify one particular policy measure that we took last year in our budget that's actually just coming to fruition now, which will help you get a sense of what we're doing and trying to make it more vibrant for the future. We introduced an idea called superclusters. And what this means is we basically looked around the world and we saw that in some places, their economy is doing significantly better than in other places. The jobs are perhaps in new fields that are more exciting than in some other places. That the investment that's happened in those places can make a big difference. So the classic example is Silicon Valley, where you see that there's this combination of research that happened at some great universities like Stanford, and investment in businesses that happened early on in places like Hewlett-Packard and now places like Google and others. And small businesses that support those and startups where all of a sudden the economic excitement that happens in that place becomes so much greater. More jobs, more opportunity. It's happening in places in Canada too that is not as well celebrated, but in places like Kitchener-Waterloo you see that. In places like Montreal in the video gaming industry you see that. You see it in biosciences as well in Montreal and Toronto. So there's places that have been really successful. Our superclusters idea is about trying to make that happen on purpose. So what we've said is we were going to identify, which we did in the last budget, a fund of money that would go to projects that would be led by a combination of universities and maybe research institutes and small and big businesses to focus on the industries that are going to have the biggest opportunity for tomorrow. So what that means is the places where Canada probably already has some differential success, where we're already doing well. So a couple of the places I mentioned, like the digital area, good example, or perhaps advanced manufacturing, or health bioscience, or clean technology. Good examples where we already have legitimate success stories. We've asked business and universities to come together with ideas. So right now we're evaluating a number of really exciting ideas on how we can invest a significant amount of money, and it's almost $1 billion into those ideas across the country. And we're going to come up with, I think our target is 5 or so ideas that are going to be big, that are going to emphasize how we can advance these particular industries in particular parts of the country where it's already robust. And it's probably going to be collaborative with different parts of the country. So it's an idea of how we create the jobs of tomorrow. And then as part of that, which is critically important for all of you, we need to make sure that we get people with the skills and the talent so they can actually take those jobs. So that's why the earlier question on how to get young people engaged in education lines up with this question about how you advance those particularly exciting opportunities, because it comes together because it's all about human beings actually being successful in those new places. That's what we're trying to do, drive an innovation agenda and make sure people have the skills and abilities to be successful in it. And that's what you're going to see more of in our budget in 2018, because as I mentioned, we're thinking about the economy of tomorrow and we're thinking about lifelong learning. So how we get that economy of tomorrow, that's the innovation agenda, and how we have lifelong learning, that's the talent agenda that all of you are so critically important to. So thanks.
Thank you, Minister.
Good luck as a trustee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Before we head
Was
up
that
to
good? Is it okay?
Yeah, that
Okay,
was
okay,
great.
okay.
That was great. Before we head to our next question, can I ask everyone in the room to stand up, please? Get yourselves moving. Great, thank you. Can I ask everyone to give 5 high tens to people around you, please?
Okay, high tens.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, how about down here with you guys? How about this?
Can I get a high
you?
five? Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So tell me why you have your watch on the outside. Very cool. Yeah, it's your particular style? Yeah. It's good.
That's great.
guys.
Thank you so
Wow,
much.
you're tall. What's your name? I'm John. Hey, John, how are you?
You can sit down now. Thank you so much.
How are you? Matthew?
We're now going to take a question from Jarvis Collegiate. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. What's your question for Minister Morneau?
Good morning, Mr. Morneau. My name is Fawaz, and I'd like to first off thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I'm wondering why citizens like us should place our trust in you with issues concerning us such as the job market, affordable housing, more specifically with rent prices and child benefits.
You can clap for his question. I mean, I think there's a couple of questions in there. One is sort of the general question around democracy. You know, why should you place your trust in a government? And the other is specifically about our government, you know, the things that we're doing, whether we're doing the things that should allow you to continue to have faith in us. But I think the first question is really important because, you know, you're all young people thinking about what you're going to do with your life and whether the society we have really works for you. And I would just encourage you, as you think about democracy, to think about all the other options. You know, democracy has its challenges. I sit in the House of Commons every day, and people yell back and forth, and it's not always productive. But what it means is we have a pretty transparent way of people seeing in this country how decisions are made. And we have election campaigns. And in those election campaigns, the idea is that different parties come forward with their platform of ideas for what will make a difference for the country in the long term. And people get to vote. We in our country, you know, that's a great privilege that we all have. And you all don't have it yet because you're not all 18. But you're going to get it, and it's important to exercise that privilege because the only way you get to have faith in a democracy is if you're part of it and if you believe that the process actually brings forth the outcome that you want. So having youth involved is critical, but having all Canadians involved is really important. We put forward a platform that we thought was displaying confidence in Canadians. We had some pretty important choices, we thought. The economy wasn't growing very well when we came into office. We felt like we were, you know, not meeting up to our environmental, you know, requirements globally. We thought that, you know, we weren't helping people in the middle class to be as successful as we know they need to be. So we put forth a platform that said we were going to invest in the middle class in our country. And why should you have faith? Because we said we were going to do that, and we did it. So we said we were going to lower taxes on middle-class Canadians. So 9 out of 10 families now have lower taxes. So for 9 million Canadians, their tax rate went down. For the top 1%, we said we were going to raise taxes, and we did that too. So for me, I was in the top 1%. My taxes went up. But on average, what happened is the average family's taxes went down by $540 a year. And the average individual's taxes went down by $330 a year. We said that we would put in place a new approach to child benefits, which is going to make families more successful. And the way we were going to do that was we were going to means test. It means we weren't going to have benefits going to every single family, but we were only going to have it go to families that earned $175,000 or less. So we stopped sending living in poverty in this country this year than before that policy. So that single policy. So if that doesn't give you faith in what a government can do with the right intent, I really don't know what can. And what we've done now is we've said we're not only doing that, but we're going to index it to cost of living. So as costs go up, that's going to go up. So I'd urge you to have faith in democracy, and you only have faith by being part of it. And then I'd urge you to watch whether governments do what they say they're going to do. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. I, this past summer, introduced a bunch of ideas around tax changes. People got really, really concerned with some of the tax changes. But we said we were going to do this. And we went through a consultation period where a lot of people gave me ideas. And we found a way to get to what we wanted to do in a way that, you know, recognized people's legitimate concerns around the policy. So if a government does what they say they're going to do, if they listen along the way to make sure they get it right, I think that's what hopefully will allow you to have confidence. And then, you know what? The good news is you get to make a choice. There'll be another time, a couple years from now, where many of you in this room will get your first opportunity to vote. And you'll be able to decide. And you should decide based on what the various parties put forward then, based on the record of the government in office, and ask yourself whether those policies are what are going to make a difference for you, your friends, your family, in the next generation. We think we're doing the right things, but it will be up to you to judge.
Thank you.
Right, thank you so much. And that's a really important reminder for everyone here to exercise their vote, especially the youth, right?
And you
Okay.
can, right?
I can. I'm 19.
Yes,
I look
okay.
12. I'm 19.
He can't.
No, not
Not
yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Soon enough. All right. So we now have a question coming all the way from Kalesh. Oh, okay. So we won't be Skyping. We'll be moving on to the next question.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to go into the audience. And looky here, we have another student trustee. Right? Would you like to stand up and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you.
So trustees have to wear blazers? Is that part of the deal?
Well, it's a club. We all have jackets. But anyway, I'm a student trustee from Ottawa, and a lot of the issues I'm hearing from my constituents, the students that are on board, is the idea around youth employment. A lot of them are really looking forward to starting their careers and starting their post-secondary careers, and they're looking on how to get those competencies that they will need to find employment. I've always been a huge advocate for work-integrated learning, and so when I was reading the budget, I found that all the sections of work-integrated learning were excellent. I really thought that was amazing. My question is, how is the government going to encourage participation in work-integrated learning? And specifically, what investments will the government make to develop the infrastructure surrounding work-integrated learning so that students across the country can develop the competencies they need to find the employment that everybody wants?
Thank you.
So you trustees have really complicated questions. This is really important, and it does kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier around the Canada Summer Jobs Program. I think the premise of your question, which is that the best way for young people to be successful is to get opportunities to work as they're going through school, whether it be high school or college or university, is important. So that is something that absolutely is key to success, getting the actual skills along the way. So government has an important role to play in that, and industry has an important role to play too. Universities and colleges have an important role to play. We'd like to think that we're part of encouraging that. So the idea around the Canada Summer Jobs Program was exactly that, creating more spaces for young people to get summer jobs and get legitimate summer jobs, so jobs that the businesses or the not-for-profits need people for because they're getting some funding, so they get that opportunity. So that's an important step. We also realize that some of the things that can make a really big difference are things like cooperative education. So we've seen in some universities in Canada, they have co-op programs where university students will work for one term and then go back to school for the next term, and we are trying to encourage that that's an important mode of learning. I know that many of you in high school even have the opportunity to work during your high school term. I know one of my children did that for a work term, and encouraging that is also important. It's not a direct issue from the federal government standpoint, but it's something that by advocating on behalf of the needs for young people to be involved in in work during high school, during college and university, we get ourselves to a better situation. But then finally, what's going to be so important, again, from the standpoint of thinking about what you're going to need overall, it is back to the question about how do we create a more innovative economy, because you want businesses to be in those exciting spaces where they need more workers. And once businesses realize that in a world where there's not as many workers as there may be opportunities, and that's kind of the world we're going to, because as we think about demographics, we might not have as many people as we need to fill the jobs. Employers are going to need to think about how do we get you engaged in the job. And so creating that early opportunity for you to work in a summer job or a co-op is something that will give them an insight into whether you can be successful in your post-education period. So we're going to try and work together to push these ideas, to fund those ideas. We also know, though, that part of our job is also thinking at a higher level about how we fund things like science and research in our country. So one of the important things that happened over the last year is we had a report that came out on the need for research funding in science. It was called the Naylor Report. And it's talking about the fact that we need to continue to invest in science. That's something we're looking at very closely in our budget, because it's important for us to be engaged in that. And something that if any of you ever have the time to look at, science funding is going to be an important part for many of your futures. We'd love to hear your opinions and your ideas on that. It's something we're going to be looking at very closely.
All right. Thank you, Minister. So now we're going to be joined by our friends from Quebec. We're going to be Skyping in from Collège Saint-Bernard. Hi, guys. Hi. Do you think it's snowing more in Quebec or Manitoba? Is it colder
It's
there?
not snowing.
It's not snowing?
No.
Is it just cold?
Il fait frais à Drummondville.
Right. Okay. All right. What's your question for the minister?
La dette du Canada est de 644 milliards de dollars. Croyez-vous que le temps est venu de payer la dette pour ne pas pénaliser les générations futures?
C'est une question très importante. Merci beaucoup. C'est toujours nécessaire dans un budget de considérer notre situation fiscale. C'est très important. Mais c'est toujours aussi important de considérer où nous devons faire des investissements pour l'avenir. Donc, ce que je peux dire, notre situation fiscale est très bonne, vraiment très bonne. Entre les pays de le G7, ça veut dire entre le Canada, les États-Unis, Allemagne, la France, Grande-Bretagne, Italie et Japon, nous avons le niveau de dette PIB, ça veut dire le niveau de dette dans notre économie qui est le plus bas. Ça veut dire que nous avons une situation fiscale où nous pouvons faire des investissements pour l'avenir. Donc, pour vous, pour les étudiants d'aujourd'hui, c'est nécessaire de faire des investissements dans l'avenir. Nous avons fait des investissements dans les familles canadiennes. Ça, c'est clair que c'était une bonne décision pour aider notre économie. Mais en même temps, nous devons faire des investissements pour le futur. Ça veut dire des investissements en infrastructure, par exemple, qui va aider les gens dans l'avenir d'avoir une meilleure situation en transit commun, par exemple, une meilleure situation pour le transport à travers notre pays, une meilleure situation pour notre environnement. Les investissements sont très importants, mais on doit être prudent. Donc, en même temps, nous sommes responsables au niveau de dette. Et pendant les prochains 5 ans, ce que nous pouvons expliquer est notre niveau de dette dans notre économie va diminuer comme ratio. Donc, c'est une façon d'être clair. Nous sommes responsables au niveau fiscal, mais en même temps, nous faisons des investissements importants pour vous et pour votre avenir.
Merci.
Was there someone who told you to clap? Because I appreciate it. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. Thank you, Minister. We now have a question written in from a school all the way in St. John's, from Newfoundland.
Okay.
They asked, autre que poser des questions aujourd'hui, comment est-ce que les jeunes peuvent-ils exprimer leur opinion par rapport au budget, puisqu'ils ne peuvent pas voter?
C'est intéressant. C'est de St. John's, Terre-Neuve?
Yes.
Ah, OK, c'est intéressant. OK,
Can't see them.
voilà. C'est Sarah, c'est intéressant, les gens de St. John's ont une question en français.
Yes.
It's kind of unusual that there's a question in French from St. John's. Mais donc, je vais le répondre en français. Vraiment, c'est aujourd'hui. Nous sommes en train d'écouter. Il y a toujours une façon pour vous d'avoir la possibilité de donner vos idées, vos commentaires à nous. Vous pouvez nous suivre sur Facebook, hashtag YourBudget2018, par exemple. Ça, c'est une façon d'exprimer vos opinions. So what I would say to all of you and to any of your friends is that young people can get their opinions heard, and your opinions will be heard as well as anyone else's if you get to us online. That is the way to get your voices heard. We actually do look at all of these submissions that we get. We get submissions from organizations, from businesses, from individuals across the country. And whether people are of voting age or not, we look at all those submissions in order to get to the right conclusions. So I would encourage you, je vous encourage de nous donner vos opinions parce que c'est très important.
Great. Thank you, Minister. So now we have a question emailed from Marie in Coquitlam, British Columbia. So the question reads, the budget is aimed at helping the middle class, but what will it change for people living in poverty?
We know that this is a really important subject. We have in this country still what I would say is an unacceptable level of poverty, something we need to work on together, and that's across people in their working lives as well as when they're retired. What I can say is we've made really important strides in this. So the budget as a vehicle is where we sort of tell people what we're going to do to get at these challenges. So I talked a couple minutes ago about the Canada Child Benefit and the fact that it will take this year 300,000 Canadian children out of poverty. So that's a really huge step, making a big difference. But obviously it's not all the way there. So what other things can we do that make a difference? A few things we've already done. We took what's called the Guaranteed Income Supplement in Canada. That's a supplement that goes to seniors. And we increased it by 10%, by almost $1,000 for single seniors, which is helping about 900,000 seniors, many of whom were living in very difficult situations, to have more income. And obviously when you're a senior and you're living in poverty, it's particularly hard because you can't necessarily go back and get another job. So that was an important step. Finally, what we did in our most recent fall economic statement, and one of the things that we will be identifying more information in Budget 2018, is something that's called the Working Income Tax Benefit. And what that is it's a benefit where it allows people in low income, earning, say, between $3,000 and $15,000, to get more benefit as they go into work. One of the challenges we face is that when people are in a very low income situation, they might be on welfare, so they need to have a reason to work, that they're actually going to make more money working than if they weren't working. And this will increase the advantage for them going back to work, helping some of the most challenged people in our society. So we are working on this agenda. We know it's critically important. The biggest thing we can do, though, over and above all those, is to make sure that we continue to grow the economy so we create great jobs so that people can see those opportunities, and to make sure that people have the ability to get into those jobs.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you all for your questions, your thoughts, and your innovative thinking. We're going to have this last question come from York School. How's it going?
Good, thank you.
Good. And what's your question for Minister Morneau? It's open.
My question today is, As a result of global climate change, there have been many more natural disasters, as shown this year in British Columbia, forest fires. My question to you is, what percentage of our federal budget will be going towards prevention and relief efforts for these natural disasters, and do you project this to raise in the next couple of years?
That's a really, really good question. I think maybe I can suggest there's two parts to the question. Because one is more broadly about our environment and climate change. And the other is some of the resulting natural disasters and what we do about it. So the first issue, I think, is one of the most important issues of our time. And that is that we are seeing climate change that is unprecedented. And we believe, to be part of a global effort to think about how we deal with that. And so one of the things that's on my agenda right now as Minister of Finance is working together with the provinces across the country to introduce pricing of carbon so that as we release carbon into the economy, that there's a price on that so that businesses and individuals see that they want to reduce the amount of carbon going into the environment over the long term, because this is a long-term global problem. So we are working with that idea in mind because we see that the pricing of carbon is the single most effective way that we can change people's incentives to actually pollute and to instead get us to a better situation long term. So that is a really important issue, I think, for all of you in the room, for all of us. The ramifications of climate change, at least some ramifications, result in really big challenges like the fires that we've seen in British Columbia, what we saw in Fort McMurray a couple of years ago. One of my observations as finance minister is that in my role, I ended up having to write checks for helping people in those really difficult situations from the federal government, sort of disaster relief. And I asked the exact same question you asked when I wrote the third check. I said, am I writing checks more often than previous finance ministers? Why is it that I'm writing separate checks? Don't we have a way of doing this that's systematic? And the answer I got back was, it's happening more frequently, which is a bit scary, honestly, and reinforces the call to action. So we don't think about it the way you asked as a percentage of the budget. We think about the need to support people in those disaster situations when they come. So we will continue to have some emergency funding, which currently exists, but we will look at whether that funding in dealing with those emergencies is appropriate to the changing situation. And that's something that is necessary for us to look at because we want to be very conscious of what these issues are. Also, having that idea of what it's going to be, it reinforces in all of us the need to think about the long-term environmental stewardship that we think is a requirement for good government. So a really important question. Unfortunately, the amount of money that we're spending to help people in really disastrous situations is increasing. And it's increasing because these problems are happening more often. I'd obviously wish it weren't the case, but we have to face up to it. And one way to face up to it is to think about, as I say, pricing carbon and other environmental ideas that we can have to reduce our environmental footprint over the long term.
Thank you, Minister. And thank you to the schools who joined us here today at the We Global Learning Center and on the Facebook Live from coast to coast.
Can I give a shout out? Are there people from Jarvis Collegiate here today? So I want to give at least a shout out. Jarvis Collegiate's in Toronto Centre, the riding here, so thanks for coming, and glad to have you here. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. Today we had our voices heard on a national scale, and you asked the questions that are important to you, but you can't leave it here. When you get back to school, think what you can be doing to create a better Canada at home, in your school, and in your community. Minister Morneau, thank you so much for your time today and for your commitment to listening to youth voices.
I want to take a moment and thank Elliot, thank Razan, and thank the WE organization for organizing this. Thank all of you for being part of this. You know, it's not every young person that can stay awake for an hour of talking about budgets, and I haven't seen anybody nod off. So I appreciate that as a starting point. But more importantly, your engagement's really great. So thank you, and I would encourage you, if you have ideas, if what we've talked about today stimulates you to talk among yourself with ideas or go home and talk to your family, get them to us, because we cannot make decisions on your behalf without you helping us to figure out what the right decisions are.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us and for answering all of our questions. And I know we're all very much looking forward to what the 2018 budget will become.
Me too.
Right.
Thank you. Thanks.
So the guy
Bye,
in the
au revoir.